and welcome back to our next episode of Big Data Talks, in which we have industry experts who are presenting and talking about the way in which data, machine learning, and artificial intelligence are changing the way we live. My name is Jan-Willem Middelburg, and I'm the author of the Enterprise Big Data Framework. I will be your host today. You can always watch back this recording on our discussion platforms on YouTube, the Big Data Framework website, and the podcasting platform of Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Today, I am very happy to announce my next guest, Mr. Navin Sinnathamby, who is based in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. I've met Navin already a number of times in different talks, and I was always super impressed with the way in which he is able to clarify very complex concepts in very easy terms. So I thought this would be a great opportunity to invite him today. Navin is an experienced executive and expert specialist in the Internet of Things, big data analytics, and artificial intelligence. He holds a master's degree in engineering, electrical electronics, and communications from the Multimedia University in Malaysia. Navin currently serves as the Head of Digital AgTech, Sectorial Projects and DroneTech at Malaysia Digital Economy Corporation. For those of you living in Malaysia, it's better known as MDEC. MDEC is an agency under the Ministry of Communications and Digital Malaysia with a close to 27-year track record of successfully leading the ICT and digital economy growth in Malaysia. If you don't know what AgTech or DroneTech actually means, you won't be the first one. The first time I heard that, those were also new terms to me, but I'm quite sure that Navin will be able to explain those today. Navin, it's really a great pleasure to have you back, this time on the Big Data Talks podcast show. Can you tell me a little bit around yourself? What is your role as the Head of Digital AgTech and what MDEC is doing within that sector?
Jan, thank you so much again on behalf of the Malaysia Digital Economy Corporation and Malaysia as a whole. It's an absolute honor to be here at the Big Data Talks series. It's my third engagement with you guys and it has been fantastic, nothing less. I'm really excited to share as much as possible. But yeah, so moving on, for those who do not know much about AgTech, fear not. Like Jan said, you are not the first to doubt it or to not hear it. Would be happy to share further. So a little bit about MDEC. We are a government agency. We are mandated to drive digital transformation across all economic sectors towards boosting the digital economy for the nation. Yep, so clear. So specifically in terms of my role, I head a department called Digital AgTech, which stands for Agriculture Technology, AgTech in short. Sectorial projects is projects by sector. So we have ongoing projects in the space of healthcare, transportation, retail, education, tourism, health, cities, so on and so forth. Yeah. And the last one being an emerging technology area called drone technology. So drone tech in short. So we do 4 things. So I'll summarize this. I love summarizing things. So our engagement model has always been DATE. I'm very sure all of us know DATE, right? So it's DATE, the dating concept. Now, D as in digitalization. So we focus on trainings of ecosystem partners so they are aware of example technologies, the use of data, and how can data optimize towards production and so on and so forth, right? A for advocacy. We advise businesses, people, on how do they drive digital transformation in their respective areas. T, transformation, is more towards projects. So yeah, this is very, very important because so the whole world is moving towards digital. In fact, it's not moving, it's already moved towards digital. It's in a very rapid phase right now. COVID was a challenging factor for everybody, but COVID taught us a very important lesson. That digital is more of a requirement now, a mandatory necessity for us to sustain and scale towards individuals, businesses, and economic as a whole. And the last one is ecosystem engagement because we strongly believe that there is no one size fit all. We work with various industry partners, definitely including your team, Jan, at Big Data Enterprise Framework. Because for us, when you talk about delivering impact at scale, you need to work with the many. So yeah, we do a lot of projects to validate solutions. We help them many. We drive transformation. I hope I summarized it.
You more than adequately did. I'm always super impressed with MDEC and the initiatives that they're taking, especially if you take that into the historic perspective and the fact that MDEC has been in existence already for 27 years. The time that data was not so relevant as it is today. And that kind of brings me to my next question. As we all know, that the pace of technology has been accelerating. We are creating more and more enormous data sets. You already talked a little bit around drones and how that is changing agriculture and a variety of different sectors throughout Malaysia. In your experience and for all the technologies that you are seeing on a day-to-day basis, what are the key elements that we should focus on, and specifically what MDEC is going to focus on in Malaysia in 2023?
Sure. So regardless of sectors, Jan, so you have the agriculture sector, the healthcare industry, transportation, and manufacturing, and so on and so forth. Now, what we as a whole group has already have is data. Everybody as an individuals, say businesses, say organizations, we all have data. We have been dealing with data. However, saying that we did not know how to optimize or analyze this data for better usage. For example, you have financial record data as an individual. So you have the amount of expenses you make, the amount of income you make, and how do you predict the savings that you're going to do? But again, was data curated well? Not really, because not many people knew the importance of data back then. Now, during COVID or before COVID, the focus was more on Internet of Things. Why? So we had data, or we call that historical data or unstructured data, very raw data where people say, so Navin, how much were you spending last month? Of course, I can give them a number, but I would need to refer to something. Why? This is not real-time data. So we needed sensors through Internet of Things to generate real-time data so you know what's happening on the ground right now as we speak. Now, based on this, what's happening now is big data analytics, whereby all this data generated, you are able to see what is happening now, whether it's in a farm or a manufacturing center or an education institute. You know what's happening now, and it allows you to make better data-driven decisions. For example, if today I'm spending too much of energy or electrical consumption, then I should know that next month moving forward with the data, I need to know how much I can save, which is operational costs. And next, of course, where we are heading towards from big data is actually artificial intelligence. Why? You will then have machine algorithms based on this data, real-time data, creating their own mindsets of its own, I call it. So it decides on its own with support of human intervention, but on an overall monitoring perspective. So it decides on its own. So yeah, so from I would say, simply said, from IoT, we move to big data, and we are moving towards artificial intelligence. And that's already happening now, not only in Malaysia, but across the globe.
Yeah, I see this. You know that I do these kind of interviews on a very regular basis, and whether I'm speaking to people from the US or Europe or Southeast Asia, kind of see a trend of that. That's where the whole world is using. So you, as representing a government agency, have an additional level of difficulty, is because you're ultimately not going to analyze that data yourself.
Correct.
If I'm correct, you're in the business of enabling. So how do you create that ecosystem? Because for all of the things that you just mentioned, there's a tremendous amount of skills necessary and knowledge necessary. And how do you facilitate that within quite a diverse country like Malaysia?
Sure. Again, I'm going to simplify that for the perspective and understanding of everybody. Yeah, because the target here is not for data specialists, because everybody needs to know the importance of data, since the focus here is on data. Yeah. Now, very rightly said, you need a certain skill set to be able analyzing data. But let's not even go there for a start. Yeah. So right now, how we do things at MDEC is to understand industry problem statements. Say I'm going to pick agriculture technology or agriculture in simple. Yeah. So we actually go to farmers to understand what are real on the ground problems. For example, they tell me, Navin, fertigation is manual based, irrigation is manual based, pest sprayings are manual based. We have all this data, but I am not sure what to do next. So based on these problem statements, then we engage ecosystem partners. When I say ecosystem partners, these are all the big data technology partners. Yeah, literally said. Because these partners have the right algorithms, the right tools, and the right skill sets to be able to analyze the data. Then we do projects together. Now, why we do projects? Because in Malaysia or anywhere part of the globe, people always believe in seeing, not listening. Yeah. So if you have a real success story, then people say, "Oh wow, that's interesting." Yeah. If you keep talking, people would probably say, "Okay, maybe right, maybe wrong." But when you show real success stories, it drives everybody to follow the same trait to adapt. So we do a lot of pilot projects based on the problem statements. We generate data. We get technology partners to analyze data to come up with frameworks, not only frameworks, but to come up with outcomes to say, for example, using this amount of data, I'm able to increase my productivity, say 20%. Now, 20% to a farmer, to a manufacturer may not be a big amount, but to a farmer, it's a huge amount. Yeah. So at different levels or different industries, this is what we do. Moving from an awareness level, we are now moving to deployment, implementation, and getting outcomes. Now, based on outcomes, when we talk to correct, we talk to other partners, then you skip
on how you transform that for concept, or I would say more complicated topics to apply to the farmers on the ground, as you mentioned, because I can only imagine that 20% more in production or 20% more in income is a significant amount of change for them.
Correct.
So I can see you're obviously a very passionate guy around data and your job, and it's also something that I saw with you in the previous engagements that we had together. Just a couple of more deep dive into your background and your passion for data. Where does your fascination for technology come from? And has it been something that you had from a very early age or as a young kid? Or how did that materialize?
Jan, I'm going to be honest. Honesty is the best cure, so I'm going to be honest because there are people who are watching, so I'm not going to be scripted. I'm going to be honest. It started as a hobby. So, for example, the trends of using smartphones in school came. Then they had Facebook and all that. But I'm just literally giving very simple examples. Then you have the number of feeds, the number of likes. These were all data related. Then from a hobby, it became a requirement because then every single industry, we're talking about technology, we're talking about data generation, not analytics, data generation. We're talking about 4IR technologies, Industry 4.0. Then it became more of a passion. Right now, it's on a stage of a passion, or I would say utmost passion, because the sector that I lead at MDEC is the agriculture sector. So I have literally got calls from farmers crying. And ladies and gentlemen, I repeat, crying, because during COVID, they were not able to manage their farms. It's lockdown period. So they were not able to fertilize, irrigate, or even spray, which actually ruined the entire production. Now imagine if they had access to those data where they could have done better data-driven monitorings or validations of their farms. So it was a passion that we wanted to help the many people, especially the lower earning community groups. So when you talk about improving livelihood, you talk about improving everyone's life as a whole. And for me, farmers were very, very close to my heart. So yeah.
Yeah, very interesting, and especially because it helps everyone. I think it's a job in which you can get a lot of satisfaction from.
And Jan, if I can add,
Of course.
Now, I did mention this during the Big Data Days 2022. A lot of times when we do events on big data, number one, some people may not really understand the ground roots of the usage of data. That's one. Number two, people tend not to be able to relate to how does data help in their businesses or organizations. But when I use agriculture as an example, everybody from different levels were able to relate back to their industry. Because imagine if agriculture is able to leverage on data, then by all means, all the other sectors across the globe should and would be able to use and harness data.
Absolutely. So if we are all going to harness data with in the next few years, and we're going to be making more data-driven decisions, in your opinion, is that going to be establishing a better world for all, or is too much data also limiting creativity, human decision-making? What's your view on that?
Again, I'm going to be very honest on that ground too. See, there's a lot of pros and cons. So I'm not going to dispute that. There is a lot of pros and cons. But ladies and gentlemen, let's look at the weightage here. There are more pros than the cons. So to answer Jan, your question, whether it's going to make our life better, definitely, right? Literally ask yourself, are you able to survive one day without your smartphones, without your social medias?
Well,
there you go.
I think that's almost impossible nowadays.
Exactly. So same. Now replace the word smartphone with data. Are you able to survive one day without data? No. Nobody can. From a farmer right up to any levels, the highest level. No. Number two, is data, with the usage of data at scale, is that going to limit decision making or human intervention? Again, no. See, when you use data or even artificial intelligence, you are not going to reduce dependency on manpower. No, a very wrong perception. It's not wrong, it's a wrong perception. It's actually going to upgrade existing workers to become more data-driven, skill set enabled. So, for example, a farmer, rather than giving him a spade and a shower to fertilize and irrigate, I can now tell them, Chief, look at your iPads. See the data. From the data, you will know which plant needs more water, which plant needs more fertilizer. So you are upgrading his skills to become more data-driven, right? So you are not eliminating manpower. You're just creating more digitally skilled individuals. Yeah. So in terms of that, as the world is moving in a very rapid phase towards digitalization or digital transformation, it's all for the betterment. Now, with the digital, can you survive? The answer is immediately no. You land in an airport, you need a taxi. Do you call? No. We quickly open a Grab or any app. So we are very app dependent. Again, data dependent.
Yeah, I fully agree with that. I think we have been established in such a world that there's no way around that anymore. And this has just become a fact of life. And as you very rightfully say, going one day or even a few hours without data present makes life almost impossible to manage.
Exactly.
So, Navin, one of the main reasons I ask you today is your, I would say, the national authority when it comes towards AgTech. And what I'm very interested in to learn is a little bit around how big data and machine learning are specifically used within agriculture. My opinion, or from my experience, agriculture is still I would say, conservative sector with a strong focus on doing things the way things have been done for frequently generations. So in your opinion, how is big data, machine learning, and even AI changing agriculture on a day-to-day basis? And can you maybe share some examples?
Sure. I'm going to break that into two parts. Number one, so let's talk about chili plantation, because people throughout the globe, generally, we eat chili in various factors, chili sauce, nasi lemaks of Malaysia. Yeah. So let's talk about chili. Now, how data plays an important role. Now, typically in a chili plantation, you will see a tank, a blue tank, which has fertilizer A, and a blue tank which has fertilizer B. Just visualize it. I know it's tough, but try to visualize it. and literally a black tank of water. So 3 tanks, yeah, tank A, which is fertilizer A, fertilizer B, a tank of water. So Jan, again, with your permission, let's say you are a farmer. On a daily operation, you are supposed to take 1 scoop of fertilizer A, add it to the tank of water, take the same 1 scoop of fertilizer B, add it to the water, stir it with a long pipe, a manual way of stirring it, and then on the pump, it fertilizes or it feeds the plants. Yes? So that's daily operation, manual operation. Now, how data is helping farmers in Malaysia right now is that, number one, you can monitor your farm from wherever you are because these tanks are connected to sensors. I will know how much to fertilize, when to fertilize, and how frequent to fertilize. Same goes to irrigation, which is literally watering the plants. So number one, we call it farming at fingertips. So why? Now, if it's too hot, do you need to water? Yes. If it's raining, do you need to water? No. But if it's raining, when you don't water, it helps reducing your operational costs because you don't pay for your water bills. Yeah. So how does this help? Data. Before this, I did not have that access to data because this was manually recorded on a form of an Excel sheet or even a notepad. Right now, sensors are giving this data, and through the data on the form of a mobile app, I can see the real-time status of my plantation for my farms. Right, so that's happening.
That's amazing, isn't it? Yeah, absolutely amazing.
So number two, now you talk about machine learning algorithms, or in my way of saying it, artificial intelligence empowerment. So in Malaysia, chili grading. So again, ladies and gentlemen, this is going to be very insightful for you. Literally, chilies in Malaysia, they call it chili kulai, a specific chili. It's measured by the length of your palm. I can be a little big size, but don't worry, it's obviously long. If the chili is longer than your palm, that's a grade A. If the chili is in between your palm, that's a grade B. If it's circle and cripple, that's a grade C. Now, while that is insightful, on a daily basis, you will literally have 3 employees or workers with their hand pointed out, measuring chili one by one, taking up to 6 hours on a daily basis, measuring tons of chili. Now, so what we have done is actually a project called Malaysia's first artificial intelligence empowered chili grading system. It was a pilot project where the chili goes through a conveyor system. There's cameras. Cameras will detect the length and the color of the chili, and then it separates by bucket A for grade A, B, and C. Now, while I get real-time data on how many chilies are A, B, and C, at the same time, I'm reducing 6 hours of, I would say, manual time, which is also not necessarily accurate. This is accurate. And when these artificial intelligence algorithms work, technically, I don't need a manpower there because these are all app dependent. In the meantime, while saying that, back to my other statement, these employees that I have can be used to do other more digital savvy things, right? Harvesting, spraying, and so on. So I don't need 3 men there, 6 hours on a daily basis. Because why? Machine learning algorithms helps. Accuracy 1, real-time data 2, and I am able to calculate my income based on the amount of A, B, and C. Now, of course, Jan, you can be asking me the bigger question here. So Navin, this is all nice, but what's the big end goal? So Jan, I'm going to give you another very simple concept. So the whole world is speaking about food security right now. I know there's lots of infographics everywhere, but let me just summarize that for everybody. Food security means everyone around the globe has access to food anytime, anywhere. That's all. Now, the fundamental basis of food security is food productivity. And how we at MDEC are doing increasing food productivity is simply using digital agriculture technology tools or services or systems. So when these systems produce more, you are reducing imports for the country, dependency on imports. When countries reduce dependency on imports, our economy grows. And that's what we call digital economy boosting.
Yeah. That's very, very interesting. I'm kind of already having this picture in my head on how that machine is there at the farm and kind of through a machine learning algorithm, some kind of a classifier is separating those chilies with a camera and probably some conveyor belt that is then sorting all of those chilies, and then basically real time the farmer could see what is the amount of money that are going to be wired towards the end of the week on their bank statement. So it's a full scale of digitization. The only, I would say, question that immediately brings me to mind is, how am I going to explain this benefit of automation of data towards a farmer who might have been doing things in a particular way for, let's say, generations, and that might not be as digitally savvy or has been trained with these kind of digital data programs in their lifetime? How do you approach that? Is that more of learning by doing, or doing site visits or videos? How do you make people in rural areas aware that this technology now exists and that is able to help?
Wonderful. So, Jan, I'm actually going to answer your question, but I'm going to generalize it. Same, to pick what Jan just said, similar, whether it's AgTech or the word data, just replace it whenever you need, right? So whether it's AgTech or data or any form of 4th IR technologies, Industry 4.0 technologies. Now, ladies and gentlemen, previously in events, in different engagement models, platforms, we were talking about awareness. Say farmers, in this case, when we tell them, sir, you using systems, you are able to do this, you are able to reduce that, better effectiveness or optimization, but words remained as words. Because for a farmer, they look at us and say, are you sure? Has this been tested?
I would ask that question.
So has this been tested? Okay, I like that. I've seen in YouTubes and every social media, but has this been tested? What are the outcomes like? What is the return of investment? Which is very true. I would ask the same question if I'm a farmer. Now, that's why success stories, or we at MDEC call it use cases, are very important. So, for example, back to the chili plantation story. So when we did a project for chili plantation in terms of fertigation, irrigation, pest detection, chili grading, various different systems for chili plantation. Now, when we go back to the farmers, the same story has changed to an impactful story. Why? I tell them, sir, with systems right now, which is very, very cost effective, you are able to increase your percentage by 20%. But hang on, does that matter? No, because for a farmer, he goes 20%, okay, so. But what matters now, I'm able to tell them, sir, you are able to earn an additional income of 2,000 ringgit per month per acre. Now that, Jan, quickly interests him and said, wow, 2,000 ringgit per month.
That's where it becomes interesting.
Correct, because now you are able to tell them the dollar and value cent. To a farmer, percentage does not mean much, right? But the dollar and value cent. So from an average of 3,000 ringgit, he's able to earn 5,000 ringgit. That is what interests him. And then we tell him, look, sir, you are able to, the system is this amount of money. You're able to pay this within a span of 2 years' time. Now, that would really interest him. And how we are able to do that is through use cases. Because MDEC is now also the official appointed partner by the Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security Malaysia as the National Strategic Agriculture Technology Validator and Evaluator. So we evaluate solutions to make sure other farmers can then adopt these validated solutions. So we become the custodian or the guardian for them to say, this has been proven, it's good to go. So yeah, that's why pilot projects are important.
I was not familiar with that. Does that mean you're starting some kind of verified solution marketplace, or how should I look at that?
Yes. So, say before COVID, you have the same amount of technology partners, the same amount of companies, the same solution. But now there's three parts. Yeah. So for a farmer, which we call it the demand, they were not sure which systems work, who is providing those systems. Yeah. Now, second part, for a technology partner, which we call supply, they are not able to talk to the farmers because farmers in their mindset have always this perception that you can be an insurance seller or you are trying to hijack my ideas in my farm. Yeah, they are quite close door, which is not wrong. So it's very hard for them to penetrate. Then comes the banks. Banks were happy to fund farmers in this case example. But banks had the same question, Navin, who validates the solution? You cannot just say this works, right? Because what works here may not work elsewhere. So they required a validation role or an evaluation role, which was actually mandated to MDEC. So right now, when we have...
So how is that, sorry for interrupting you for a second, but I'm really curious to understand, how does that validation process work? Because from all my conversations, I've spoken to a lot of, I would say, industry vendors, and they're always very proprietary around the big data solutions that they're creating. So to kind of build on your example of the chili farm, there might be some kind of an algorithm that automatically detects what is the size of the chili and what kind of grade is it. That will be programmed in some kind of an algorithm that will showcase the result. That's on the vendor side. But now we want to certify. So suppose that I'm a vendor and I would like to certify my solution with MDEC. Does that mean that I kind of need to open up the solution and let MDEC data scientists review that process or that algorithm?
Okay.
How does that work?
So say specifically in terms of data analytics or even machine algorithms, we do not validate the algorithms. No, we validate the solution as a whole. For example, say I have, let me give an example. Say dairy farm. Yeah. So we're doing a project for dairy farm, an example. Yeah. So we have identified a list of problem statements. Then we reach out to the data technology partners to come up with solutions. So when we validate solutions, we look at the before production and the after production to system. Say before production, I was doing 10 tons of dairy products produced. Now with data solutions in place, with machine learning algorithms, I'm able to produce, say, 50 tons. So there's a jump of times 5. So for me, that is an effective technology solution. So we look at the solution as a whole, but not rather the algorithms, because algorithms are copyrighted or IP protected by companies, which we do not we do not doubt and we do not intervene, because those are solutions which are to the companies. But what we are more focused is the solution as a whole to address problem statements by industry, because what works here can be replicated across industries. And Jan, I'm saying that because the systems that we use for agriculture, for example, can be replicated across manufacturing as well. You would be surprised because problem statements are quite common.
Yeah. It's a very, very interesting approach. I was not aware, so that's always good of these kind of talks, that I'm even learning something new. I think that this validation system in terms of those kind of technical solutions is a very, I would say, appropriate way to kind of safeguard quality of these kinds of data products.
So Jan,
if I'm taking this one step or one level of abstraction higher, in my podcast over the last few months, we had a lot of discussions with different people around the world on the need for governments to start regulating algorithms. And it's basically, to a small extent, what is happening here, but then more on a solution level. What is your view around the way in which there is a role for the government to protect the public from algorithms that might not have the best intentions, or that might be there to benefit on the people who are using them?
So very true.
Any views on that?
Great. Very true, because when you say data specifically, so data protection acts, data policy, data security has become a very important factor. Because data, when you use right, it can optimize. When you use wrong, it can disrupt in a very bad way. Yeah. So speaking of that, so we also work with other stakeholders across Malaysia to look at data sharing policies, data frameworks, national data frameworks that looks at data securities, data frameworks, data interventions, and so on and so forth. Because when there is a tech in space, there has to be some policy governance tied to it. Else it's very loose. Anyone can use it to the betterment or to the other side of it. Yeah. So yes.
Yeah.
So we do work with a lot of stakeholders, and as we speak right now in this session, there are national data sharing policies being developed, being finalized. There are national data frameworks being developed as well. Some are already in place, but yes, these are already actively being seen.
Yeah. So there is, in your opinion, a role for the government to start protection of the public in those kind of situations.
See, the role of a government, technically, to say, is to protect, to deliver and improve the people. So the work of governance or custodian is, to summarize it. So when you say data, yes, government plays a very important role as a custodian, or at least a guide to ensure that things do not go the other way. It should be for the betterment and not vice versa. But yes, government definitely plays a role.
I fully support that approach. I think that because many of these algorithms are quite complicated, and not everyone has the ability, time, and knowledge to start diving into these algorithms, it becomes kind of a moral responsibility to ensure that they are not used to harm people.
Correct.
Or that they're not used for the financial benefit of certain companies or individuals. So I think we're going to see more and more of that in the years to come. So it's actually quite an interesting point you're making with these certified solutions, because that's an actual very practical use case.
In fact, Jan, the ministry that MDEC is under the purview of or reports to is actually Ministry of Communications and Digital Malaysia, is actively looking at data sharing policies, data sharing frameworks. And data privacy is something that we preach about every single day. Like you said, we don't want data to be used in the wrong way.
No, I think that's a very, very interesting point. It also brings me to what was one of my next questions. When I prepared for this interview and when I read your bio and your history, I noticed that you are also more and more involved in what is now known as DroneTech, which is a very new kind of technology, or relatively unknown. Most people use the toy drones for their personal use. But I've seen with MDEC that there's also a lot of opportunity to use that within agriculture, within plantations, within farms. Can you share a little bit around how drone technology is changing agriculture in general?
Great. Again, I'm going to summarize this, Jan, because the perception that drones are nice, it's sexy, flying on the air, it's a hobby for the rich boys. Again, it's a wrong perception to me, at least. Why? Because drones are here to solve many complicated issues. Let me give you several examples. Now, drone is very classical because literally when a drone flies, it is capturing images. We call that geo-mapping images. Now, it literally says geo-mapping images equals to data. Now, what data is this? Because let's say I am a farm owner of 10 acres of palm oil, an example. Now, I obviously do not have oversight over what's happening in every single tree in that 10 acres. But a drone is able to tell me through color codings. Green means this area is fertilized well, it's irrigated well. Orange means it's fine, it probably needs a little bit more. But gray means these are non-healthy areas, which actually needs direct intervention. That means I need to either fertilize more, I need to do a treatment of soils, or I need to irrigate more. So as a farm owner, drones give me that oversight view of the whole picture. But that's one. Number two, zone, that's what we always read about. But zone nowadays also has, we call it zoning. Means, technically, let's talk about plantation, palm oil. Drones, when it flies, besides doing imaging, it can capture, we call it small boxes or machine learning algorithm boxes to see each tree can produce how many fruits. Say an example, each tree is supposed to produce 5 to 10 fruits. So when the drone flies, it goes all the way and it captures all these images. All of a sudden, it detects one tree that's only producing 3 fruits. So for us as a normal, typical individual, we go like, okay, so what? True, very true. But to a farm owner or the plantation owner, what we tell him is that that particular tree has a disease. And that tree has to be chopped off first, because else, within the span of few hours, the entire radius of 1 kilometer will be affected. Now, again, we go, so what? Of course, it means nothing to us, but to a farm owner, it means millions of ringgit loss. So drones are very classical in that. No, that's plantation. But let's talk about COVID. So when COVID came, people were just scared to go out of the house for obvious reasons, infections and so on and so forth. But drones were able to deliver medical equipments, medicines across states, right, to people in the rural areas, places that people do not go to. For example, Jan, let's say you're doing this recording on a 36-story high, and you need to do a data capturing on the 36th floor. Obviously, a person with normal mind would say, no, I'm afraid of heights. But drones have no fear of anything. It can fly at any height. And you get all this real-time data. So that's why drone tech has become very significant towards digital transformation across most sectors, not only agri, but transportation. Right now in Malaysia, we're talking about drone delivery of food, meals, things to people.
Yeah.
So yeah. And drones don't get tired. So it's accurate, it does not get tired, it captures great data. So that's why drone is called as emerging technology, because with a drone, you can then match it together with sensors, you can match it together with machine learning algorithm, CCTVs or cameras. So you can add anything to make it what you want.
Yeah, I always think it's one of the very interesting technologies that has arisen in very rapid times. I think around 7-8 years ago, this was more of a novelty. Nowadays, it's becoming more and more mainstream. So if people are listening to this, and one of the main reasons why we're creating this podcast is to also inspire people to start learning a little bit more around data, seeing how data can help them to enhance their careers. You've been talking around a lot of, I would say, cool, interesting, fascinating technology, whether it is machine learning for measuring chilies, whether it is around how do I create a drone that can do that thermal imaging to see which trees have specific diseases, or what will be the yield of my crops in these kind of drones. For everyone who's listening right now and that says, well, I would like to learn more about that, are there any specific learning opportunities that MDEC is providing or that you know of for people who want to get into these kind of specialistic programs or kind of want to learn more about these topics?
Great. So Jan, of course, typically we all look at websites, you would get more insights, but I'm not going to do that. Okay, so it's very, very important, because when you talk about data, the hands do not go here. The hands go this way. Yep. Because to understand data starts with you first, and then your organization, and then the country or the nation as a whole. So you would need to understand about data values first, so that you can generate or optimize those data. So for that, MDEC, we actually have few initiatives. We have data-driven organizations. We have a lot of data-driven initiatives revolving around that side too. So you can always refer to MDEC, type in data-driven organizations, which tells you, for example, if you're a company employee, you can actually take up a data assessment tool to see where your current data readiness lies, what are the gaps, and how can you potentially address the gaps. Yeah, so these assessments are ready. It's called data and AI technology assessment, right? So look for data assessment. I think it was some
kind of readiness assessment. I've been using it myself as well. It's very, very excellent.
Correct. And at least for a very close beginner who wants to know, those initiatives are there. Data models are there. You can look at data-driven initiatives by MDEC too. A lot of areas in that space. But again, say you go and you get lost because there are so many great initiatives driven by MDEC together with our ecosystem partners and stakeholders. No worries. You could always reach out to MDEC through MDEC's page, where at the bottom you say contact MDEC. It will link to you to a page, an email link called CLIC, clic@mdec.com.my. Drop us an email. We are happy to share. Like I said, we cannot do this alone. So we welcome everybody to come and talk to us, where we learn and grow together. Because when you talk about delivering impact at scale, you need to work with the many. End of the day, it's for the many too.
Yeah, very good. Yeah, ultimately it's around, I think, ecosystem development, and I think that's where MDEC is actually playing a fantastic role.
Thank you. Yeah.
So Navin, we're going through the time very, very quickly. I think I have time to just ask you one final question. And for everyone that is listening, do you have any kind of final words of advice for people who want to get more involved, that want to become more data-driven, that want to get started around changing their lives through data, whether it's a farmer or someone in another organization, and anyone in between? Any final thoughts from your side?
Sure. Jan, like I said earlier, an advice to everybody as our ecosystem partners respectively, the understanding of data has to start within you first. So I know that's a very broad topic, but ladies and gentlemen, after this session, look at the types of data that you have. This can be very simple data. The amount of expenses you have in a month, your water bills, your electricity bills, your employment rates. Look at the types of data that you have and think about what can you do with this data. Now, for example, talk about expenses. We all have expenses. Say when you generate data in a simple Excel sheet. So let's talk about simple Excel sheet. Create this data, do simple calculations so that see how much you can spend for the next month. If you're able to get some sort of saving numbers, ladies and gentlemen, you understand the value of data. And then you talk about bigger data, right? Data as an organization, how much do you spend for employees, energy consumption, production rules and all that. But it starts with you first. Most of the reason why I stress on this data is because some of us, we do have so much of data, not knowing what can we do with this data. So it starts with you first. Do not fear of not knowing, because we all started in a place where we never knew. We learn, we grow together. If you're not sure, please do reach out to us at MDEC or even Jan's team at Enterprise Big Data Networks. Happy to share what we know. Like I said, we learn and grow together.
Could I summarize your words as use data to get in control of your own life?
Yes, of course. It starts here first.
Yeah, it starts with yourself. I think that's a very powerful lesson, and probably also a very great way to end this interview. As always, Navin, we've been engaging a couple of times already. It's such a pleasure to kind of learn from you, to listen to all the wonderful stories you have to share. What I always love is that you make complicated matters quite practical, and your stories around chili farms, plantations, make it all very, very tangible for people who are listening and that might or might not be so familiar with how data is changing the way we live. And I think that this is an excellent interview, how data and the right use of data is making a profound impact in the way that people operate. As you know, next year we're going to be organizing already our 4th edition of Big Data Days. Last year we had a wonderful partnership with MDEC. Hope to continue that into next year, and would be very keen to invite you or one of your colleagues at MDEC again to show us the latest and greatest when it comes to AgTech, drone technology, or any other tech that is changing the way we live. Thanks so much for being on the Big Data Talks episode today. It's been a real pleasure.
Jan, an absolute pleasure, an honor for the opportunity given. Thank you so very much. But again, speaking about Big Data Days, for those who watched the edition of 2022, we spoke a lot, but for those who did not watch, fear not, because please do join us. And again, when I say join us, Jan, I'm giving you my commitment that MDEC is happy to support Big Data Days, the upcoming edition, 2023, as a supporting partner, where we will be sharing more on use cases or success stories in the space of data. So stay tuned, like Jan said, this is just the beginning. We look forward to working with all of you. Thank you so much. Stay tuned.
Thank you so much, Navin.
Take good care.